If you think your house is haunted, then just wait till you hear about what happened to the entire Jamison family. In this haunting homicide or haunting horror story, let's get started. On the outskirts of town in a small neighborhood sat an ordinary-looking house at 2940 Bent Creek Drive. The residents of this home were the Jamison family, a seemingly happy family who had recently moved into the area. Inside this home lived a father named John Jamison, his wife Mary, and their 4 children, ages 14, 13, 9, and 7. On July 1989, this family was enjoying a typical day. They attended church services together, and they were all excited for the upcoming school holiday, when all of them disappeared without a trace. What could have possibly happened to them? Let's find out in today's episode of Haunting or Homicide. At around 11 a.m. on that summer morning, the Jarmans went to the local mall. It was a normal trip to the mall. John bought new clothes for his son, while Mary helped their 2 daughters pick out some new shoes. When they arrived home from the mall, they all decided to relax and enjoy the rest of their day. At around 4 p.m., John and his 14-year-old son Mark watched TV. Mary cleaned the house with her 2 youngest daughters helping her out. And then there was 13-year-old daughter Anna, who liked to spend time alone in her room playing with her boyfriend. During the time she spent in her room, Anna made several phone calls to her friends, but no one answered. She then decided to go to her parents' bedroom to use their phone. To this day, no one knows what happened next. But at approximately 4:15 p.m., someone called the local police department and told them that he had just killed his entire family. When the police officers arrived at the Jamison residence, everything seemed to be fine. The cars were parked outside, and there were no signs of forced entry. The officers knocked on the door, but no one answered. They tried again, louder this time, but still no answer. Suspicious that something was wrong inside, they eventually broke down the front door and entered the house. And this is where they found something that would shock them. Throughout the house, the police found blood splattered everywhere, covering the walls, the furniture, and even the drapes. However, they didn't find the Jamison family anywhere. What could have happened to them? As the investigation continued, the police found more disturbing clues. In the kitchen, they found a bucket filled with human excrement and some animal feed. On the counter beside it, they found a note written on a torn piece of paper that read, "You'll find the rest of the family in the bedrooms." This was a terrifying discovery, but it only got worse as the officers began searching the bedrooms. In the youngest daughter's bedroom, the police found more animal feed scattered across the floor and blood covering the bed. As they entered the next bedroom, they found the bodies of Mary and her 2 young daughters lying on the bed. Both girls were completely nude, but their mother still had her clothes on. Their throats had been slit open, and their bodies were mutilated beyond belief. Whoever did this really meant to harm them. But what happened to John and his 2 older kids? Is there even more blood and carnage waiting to be found? The police searched the entire house, but couldn't find any sign of the other members of the family. Eventually, they found John's truck outside, and it led them to an abandoned barn nearby, where they found the bodies of John and his son, Mark. The injuries they sustained were similar to their wife and daughters, throats slashed open, as if they were trying to sacrifice the family. But who would do such a thing, and why? After hearing about the terrible murder, the community wanted answers. And as the police investigated further, they uncovered some disturbing details about the family. A neighbor reported seeing 2 suspicious men arguing with John a few days before the murders. These men had come to the house looking for money that John supposedly owed them. Could this have something to do with the murders? Another person who knew the family came forward to tell the police about the strange activities that had been happening inside the house for years. Apparently, John was a Satanist who had been involved in some shady things. He often held strange rituals inside the house and made his kids participate. After hearing this, the police searched the house once more, and this time, they found a hidden basement underneath the garage. Inside this basement, they found occult symbols and evidence that the Jamison family was practicing black magic. With this new information, the police now believed that the killings were part of a satanic ritual gone wrong. The question was, who was responsible? At first, the police focused on John's brother, who they believed could have helped him with the ritual. He was arrested and charged with the killings, but he was later released when evidence showed he wasn't involved. As months turned into years, the case grew colder and colder. All leads seemed to have gone nowhere, and the police were no closer to finding the killer than when they first arrived on the scene. Then, 13 years after the murders, someone finally came forward with information. A man named Rodney Halbkissen told the police that he had been one of the men who had argued with John over money a few days before the murders. He claimed that John had asked him and his friend Joseph to come over to his house so he could initiate them into his satanic cult. Rodney agreed to testify against Joseph, and in return, he received immunity from prosecution for his involvement in the crime. He told the police that he and Joseph had followed John home from the mall that day. Then, while John was inside the house, they kicked in the back door and tied up the family. John then took them into his secret basement and ordered them to dig a hole. The three men planned to bury the family alive. However, when they realized how difficult it was to dig a hole through the concrete floor, they decided to kill them instead. John showed them how to cut open the blood vessels in the neck to drain the blood. While John held the knife, Rodney and Joseph took turns cutting the throats of each family member. Then they mutilated their bodies and left them in the house. Afterward, they took some of the blood and covered the walls with it to make it look like a sacrifice. Finally, they took animal feces from the barn and smeared it around the house, pretending that an animal had attacked the family. With this new evidence, the police were able to arrest Joseph, who was already serving prison time for another murder. However, he denied the charges, claiming that Rodney had done all the killing, and that he had only helped dispose of the bodies. Rodney, on the other hand, stuck to his story, claiming that both him and Joseph were guilty. Unfortunately, the statute of limitations had already passed, so they could only charge Joseph for the murders that had taken place during the time he was already incarcerated. He was given multiple life sentences, but to this day, he maintains his innocence. Rodney served 17 years in prison for his involvement in the crime and was released in 2006. So what really happened at 2940 Bent Creek Drive? Was it a haunting or homicide? You decide. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Also, be sure to check out our other videos, which are just as creepy.